Okay, so the last part of this before we move on to the next topic is by Kotaku. If you've never been to Kotaku, go to the website. Kotaku's good. China's new gaming restrictions have already been circumvented.
No surprise there. How many of us are surprised? Raise your hands.
Literally zero of us should be surprised, because the moment you put a electronic restriction on an electronic thing, somebody is going to figure out how to break it.
Yep.
Like with that whole online online anti-cheat tools, online, DMCA or whatever tools to keep you from having pirated copies of your software. People have already found ways around that.
Yeah.
People are now finding ways around this. Literally nobody should be surprised.
Yeah.
Literally nobody.
So what does it say about it?
Well, go ahead.
What?
You're not reading?
Oh, yeah.
I'm doing a lot of talking. You read. You read right here. Read it.
Okay. So the new regulations are not law, but Tencent, of course.
Of course, Tencent.
Of course, Tencent.
Yep.
They created a real name registration system for the game Honor of Kings so that it would be compliant with the effort to limit playtime for minors. But, to get around those restrictions, accounts for rent started appearing on e-commerce site. Prices starting at 33 yuan. That's just over $5 for 2 hours of use. So by renting an account, the under 18 crowd doesn't have to enter their real names and can play this game without time limits.
So basically, in order to circumvent the law that only allows you to play for 3 hours a week, companies and black hat hackers have created renting accounts.
Yep.
Probably hundreds to thousands of these.
Yeah.
Where you literally just rent out an account and play the game.
Yeah.
And yes, Burke, they created a market for renting out game accounts.
They did.
And this brings me to the big point that I wanted to go over. Attempting to regulate something like this, regardless of the morality, is asinine.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to work. In order to fix this problem, you need to look at the heart of the matter. You need to look at what is happening to create this. And, I mean, again, we're all going to have different things, and Steele's going to get on his soapbox for a moment, even though I'm behind a podium. And I'm going to say it's because the game developers, the game studios, the industry as itself has been allowed to get away with creating these Skinner box. I just air quoted. My avatar can't do it. These Skinner box dopamine cycle exploitations that turn people into these addicted players where they're spending way too much time and money. And that's the only way that we're going to fix it, is to fix it on that level.
Yeah.
Because if we try to fix it on a regulatory of the player level, we're just going to create markets like Burke said.
Like this.
Yeah.
Like this very thing right here.
You are never going to be able to stop someone from doing something that is unhealthy if they want to do something that's unhealthy. That is the very core of addiction.
Yeah.
Until they realize they have a problem, they're going to do it. And if you try to stop them from doing it, they're either going to find a way to do it, or someone is going to find a way to make them, to do it for them for a price.
For a price. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it all comes down to what the industry has been needing to do for quite some time across the board. And that is stop with the goddamn Skinner boxes.
Yeah. Stop with addictive dopamine cycle exploitation.
Because now this is what it's led to. It's led to a major world government cracking down hard on video gaming. And I want you all to put on your conspiracy tinfoil hats for a moment and think a step beyond this. If China, one of the 3 largest governments in the world, is able to pull this shit off, what's stopping another government from doing something similar for a different reason? Let's take a step back and look at the United States. The United States has had a very ugly, tenuous, rocky history with video games. Yeah.
Because on more than one occasion, people within the United States government have blamed the violence in video games in real life violence. Now, I'm going to go out and I'm going to state my official stance on that. That's bullshit. The games do not make a person violent. They may desensitize, but that's not the same. However, tinfoil hats on, what is stopping what's happening in China from inspiring other governments, like, for example, a more dystopian version of the US government, from doing the exact same thing for a different reason? There is nothing.
Nothing.
There is nothing. This dangerous thing, this thing happening in China, is setting a very dangerous precedent. Very dangerous. And what is stopping the next government or the next governing body from going a step further?
Yeah. So there it is. We got a slippery slope.
Slippery slope. The slipperiest. What is Nate saying?
Nate says he still thinks they should be regulated, like looking at UEA, but with actual psychology, psychiatric research behind it.
Well, putting a limit on a studio and what a studio can and cannot do based off of scientific research is different than a governing body simply saying players can and cannot do a thing.
Yeah, right.
I mean, you're basically doing the same thing as looking at whether or not the stuff they put into modern day cigarettes is harmful for your lungs. It's less about morality and it's more about public health. And if you look at it from a public health standpoint, then, I mean, I personally am going to have no problem with that. I'm behind it. I would be behind any government looking at video game addiction as a public health issue and regulating it based off of that.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
and Burke says there's no scientific study that links violent acts to real life. There is none.
No, there isn't none. There is none.
It doesn't exist. Again, it does desensitize, but then again, with all the mass media that we consume on a regular basis, I think we're all desensitized to violence.
Yeah.
We really are. I mean, I'm looking at stuff nowadays, like horror movies, nowadays where people are getting like tied to chairs and having their arms sawed off.
Yeah.
And you never used to see that back in the day. It was pretty scary and pretty edgy when Michael Myers ice picked someone in the face.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we are as a society desensitized to violence, but that doesn't mean that we're going to go out and perform it. I love horror movies. I'm not going to go out and hatchet someone to death. So, I mean,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess it's that thin line of personal responsibility versus don't feed the problem.
Yeah.
I am interested in what you guys have to say, not just in live chat, but in VOD, the comment section, because this is a hotbed topic.
Oh, it is.
It is. And this is the slippery slope that is the beginning of something really good.
Yeah.
That's a technical term, by the way.
Okay.
You go ahead and turn the display off while we continue to talk about stuff. It is fascinating. The psychology behind game development and using that dopamine release cycle can create a very enjoyable experience. Look at the Souls games.
Oh, yeah. That's
The Souls
a good
games
example.
use that in a very positive
Yeah.
way. Dark Souls, Bloodborne, etc., etc. Those games are very challenging, and when you overcome the challenge, the dopamine release is really high, and you feel really good for overcoming that difficult boss fight.
Yeah.
And that's a positive way of using that cycle, that little dopamine release cycle. What about you, Teal? Anything on your end for something that we say is a positive or negative experience or negative way of that being used?
Well, I'm just looking at it from a
Getting the next one ready.
business standpoint. And video game makers, video game companies have an ethical responsibility to place player safety above profits. Of course,
I agree.
you know, some do, some don't. But, you know, in the corporate world, there's something called fiduciary responsibility. And you have a responsibility to not release harmful product. I mean, you don't want to kill your customers.
Theoretically,
Theoretically. But you know, that's exactly what happens when you put these kind of nasty little negative Skinner box loops into your games.
Yeah.
You're harming your customers.
You are. I like that term, fiduciary responsibility. Fiduciary responsibility. Because, yeah, unfortunately, when you have runaway capitalism, I say, skirting that political line, but when you have runaway capitalism, which is basically, you know, put out whatever you want to put out, make all the money you can, vote with your wallet, vote with your wallet. Well, the problem is that we're still human beings that are driven by chemical reactions inside of our brains. We are not Vulcans. We
Yeah.
are literally driven by chemical responses. So if a company has figured out a way to use those chemical responses within a person's brain to make them compulsorily buy their product and use their product, even at the detriment of their own health, that's horrible.
It is. You're breaking the unspoken contract of do no harm.
Right. Because a person will engage in an activity that gives them that dopamine release, even at the expense of their physical and mental health. Because one, dopamine is extremely addictive, but two, we are hardwired for that. We used to live in a world where everything was trying to kill us.
Yeah.
We still do. It's called Australia.
It's called Australia.
Right. But, we are hardwired to get that response, that dopamine rush of, oh, thank God. Oh, that just, that feeling that you get. You all have all had it. And when a company exploits that, they've broken every type of trust that the consumer can give them.
Yeah.
All right.
So I want to leave that there.
Okay.
But I do want to see some comments on that in the playback in the VOD that we have. I'd like to see some more conversation on that because it's the gaming world's dirty little secret.
It is.
And I would like to shine as much light on that as possible so that we can move away from the harmful practice and focus on the positive.
Yeah. Because you can use it to create positive responses within your players and enhance their UX.
Yeah.
100%.